Alrighty, good morning. We are live with another episode of College Coffee Talk. Pearl and Andy Lockwood. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning. Hi, Andy. Hi, everybody.
So this is a show about all things college knowledge that you can use, particularly about giving your child the almost unfair advantage to getting into their dream school. We also talk about scholarships and other ways to pay for college, financial aid, SAT, ACT, you name it. Today's episode is going to be, I think it's going to be a little controversial. I think it might be a little bit of a doozy. And it's not just about us preaching to you or anyone watching this. It's also giving ourselves this advice. How can parents support their children in the college application process without overstepping?
Yep.
In other words, how not to be a helicopter parent, even if you believe that if you don't micromanage them until they're 35 years old, nothing will ever get done. Join us in a simultaneous, synchronized sip of your morning coffee. Good morning. Let us know in the chat that you can see and hear and share what you're actually drinking this morning with us. So you're having cappuccino?
You're having a cappuccino. I'm having a latte macchiato. It's a different button on our coffee machine.
Oh, I thought you had a whole different brewing process.
Well, the machine does.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Vital
Let me see who's
plan.
who is joining us here. I see Patrick is here, and if anyone has any comments or questions, doesn't have to be coffee related, pop them in here. Hello to MD and Michelle. Good morning, Dr. Michelle. Hopefully not seeing patients right now. Hopefully you just focused in on us. Terrific. So we've talked about this for years.
Yep.
And by the way, we have 4 kids, 3 in college. So we talk about this between ourselves also about trying to thread that needle between supporting and helicoptering or
And
snowplowing.
hamstringing.
Yeah. So there's the immediate need, right, which I think is nothing's getting done unless I step in. And that's more her than me. But
Here I come to save the day. Something like that.
God.
What is it? Underdog?
It's Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse is on his way. Right. Okay.
But it's fact-based, and you've said guilty, but in your defense, there are some situations where nothing's going to get done unless you actually do it. I just don't know where that line. There's a line that you have to cross, and I think sometimes you hit it too quickly, but your results kind of speak for themselves too. And I think a lot of people watching this can relate to that. So we are, we're our own clients also. It's not just about us giving advice here.
There's a knee-jerk reaction in parents or people to do something, to actively do something. And what could be equally as important is to have the absence of action, not do something, to actually have restraint and hang back and don't dive in and help and save and rescue.
Right. So Pearl alluded to the fact that there's this, and I said this. There's this immediate need that you have to update your financial aid ID, your FSA ID. You've got to get a draft of your essay over to me or someone on our team to read it. If you do too much reminding and prodding and nagging, number one, you will certainly chip away a little bit at your relationship with it, whatever you have in a very stressful period of time for both of you, mom and child. I could be saying dads, but let's be honest, it's really moms for the most part.
In defense, he's not being misogynistic. In the bird's eye view of the hundreds and hundreds of families, I'll just speak for myself. I see it is typically the mother.
Yeah, it's only like 99%. I mean, it's not everyone.
There are exceptions.
Yes, but the longer term ramifications of doing this, and we saw an extreme example a few years ago with the Lori Loughlin, Felicity Huffman, I'm going to pull all these strings. I'm going to bend over backwards. I'm going to pay all this money to get you in somewhere, and then the kid gets in. But how does he or she feel about themselves? Because the message with Lori, if you're watching, and Felicity, and any slightly less aggressive parent is that you couldn't have done this on your own without my overstepping.
That's right.
So there's a fine
So
line.
damaging.
It is damaging, and every kid's different too, right? So I mentioned we have 3 in college, we have 4 total. 2 of our kids probably needed a little more of the push than the other 2. One was not coachable at all, and the other one was coachable in that he trained you to do everything for him. So that's a form of being coachable. I think you were the coachable one.
I've always been told I'm very coachable.
Yeah, well, let me agree publicly here on the Facebook that you are very coachable. But I think that looking back, I don't think that I don't know if you agree with me or disagree with me. I think you will agree with me that that wasn't the right move because you kind of forced the issue a lot, and then things didn't work out so well for that situation.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's always the case. I mean, sometimes it works out.
Plus, what have I done in a teaching moment to impart those skills to my own child in that instance where you come in and hovercraft in and swoop in and do it yourself? It is easier to do it yourself. I'm very able to do things much faster and whatever. That's probably the attitude. But what are you teaching your child, and what's going to happen next time? What's going to happen when you're not around one day?
Right. So that's the bigger picture that we're alluding to here is that, number one, deep down, they may not admit this, and it may not be apparent, but deep down, they have to have that imposter syndrome that you did everything for them, or they wouldn't be where they were today had mommy or daddy maybe not stepped in. But number two, you're training them to be dependent,
Right.
and not to be able to take full responsibility. So at some point, and in some cases, in the very near future, when they get out of college or when they try to get an internship, when they're in college, that's when the chickens start coming home to roost a little bit, when maybe mommy and daddy can't be there. Although some parents do show up on job interviews. That's a common thing, by the way.
It's bananas.
Yeah, it is bananas. That's been happening for years. And they call the hiring manager to find out why the kid didn't get an offer.
Right.
So many awkward stories but that would be a big digression here. Hard to believe, and hard for me not to tell them here. Right. So what you're doing is you're sort of retarding their development into responsible adults.
Yeah.
And that is not what we want. Even if the tendency is to, and I get this, is to like, I want to do the best for you. I want to hire a firm like Lockwood College Prep, or I want to hire special this and special that. If you have the wherewithal to do that, and that's fine. But then there's a line where it's easy to cross because of that very, I think, admirable impulse that we all want to do the best for our kids. So one example that I'm seeing right now as we record this, we're live now, but as we record this, August 26th, which is 2 days after Pearl's birthday. Happy birthday to Pearl.
Thank you.
Did you have a nice birthday?
I had a great birthday.
Okay, enough about your birthday.
You.
Okay. So much pressure every year. I just can't describe it, but I'm glad it worked out for both of us. Anyway, I am buttocks deep in reviewing essays, and I have to tell you that, and I feel I myself am guilty of this. There is another line here to cross between helping with an essay versus rewriting it.
Mommying an essay?
Mom GPT or Chat GPT or any GPT that's out there. Yeah. Right. But I'll, as someone who reviews final drafts that our team of editors works on, it's very hard sometimes to find that balance between wanting the essay to be the best it can be and having it sound like a child actually wrote it. because I can write what I think would be a pretty persuasive essay, but I'm a recovering attorney and I've been a college advisor for 20 something years. And the kids that we work with will work with one of our editors who's usually some, super genius from Princeton or Brown or Yale or, very, high end editors in most cases, not always, that are very capable of writing those caliber types of essays, but they're not. It shouldn't sound like someone else wrote it. And then when a parent gets involved, or when a parent and an aunt and a neighbor
teacher,
right,
an English teacher,
and now you've got a committee of shadow editors. The guy at the deli has an opinion. Then it doesn't sound like anyone wrote it, and that's a big overstepping, not just by parents but anyone. So I can't tell you there's an exact formula for everyone in terms of helping with essays. What we try to recommend for every kid is, like, if I'm sitting down with someone for the first time, I will brainstorm the essay topic with them. Then there's usually at least 2 or 3 different directions to go. There might be 2 or 3 prompts to write to, and then I'll get the student writing on that essay, and then she'll come back and I'll make a few comments. Sometimes that's good enough to turn over to one of our editors. Sometimes it needs a little bit more work just to hone in on the right message. I'm not doing any editing. I'm just thinking strategically and trying to draw out what's going to be important for the students to tell about themselves when they submit an application. And then what I say is, look, go off and work with Joe. That we actually have somebody named Joe who's a professional.
It's not made up for the story.
No, exactly. Yeah, Joe, real name Joe. And
sounds real.
And do a few. He is so real. He's an artiste. Sometimes he gets a little artsy.
Yeah.
Joe C.
That's funny.
But he's great. They're great. So because he really cares. He's really into every. It's like his whole career is writing on every child's essay. I kind of feel that way too.
It is in and of itself a wonderful teaching moment because it's a big deal.
So back to my advice. So what I'll say is, like, look, all right, go off, do some intermediate drafts with him. And then when you're ready, when you both have sort of signed off on it, then I and maybe your mom or your dad, or maybe 1 or 2 people that you trust, maybe they should read it, but not the intermediate drafts. Please don't let anyone see the intermediate drafts, because that's when too many chefs spoil the dish comes into effect. And it may seem like it's a good idea at the time, but I can swear to you here, to the gods of social media, to Mark Zuckerberg, to anyone who's listening, that never works. It never produces anything more than a big mess that has to be undone, a lot of stress, a lot of confusion, because you've got a bunch of different people tugging at you in different directions. That is terrible. But to be fair, your mom or your dad, if you're a student, they know you better than I ever will if I'm working with you or Joe or any of our editors. So someone who knows you very well should review this essay. Preferably someone, it's the same person as someone who is a decent reader and writer, not someone who has ill-formed opinions based on God knows what. Yeah. All right. So I see a lot of questions and comments. People joining us here. If you have any thoughts, this would be a magnificent time to mention. So I already said hello to Michelle, Dr. Michelle, who is not one of the people I'm talking about. Congratulations. Probably because she has a real profession and she is busy and she trusts professionals that she hires. It would be like going to see Dr. Michelle and disagreeing with all of her
expertise.
Yeah, all her expertise.
For years of expertise.
No, I want to take that medicine and this one, and you prescribe this to me. Okay.
And I expect to feel better.
Right. I want the results, but I don't want to take your advice.
Right.
Rebecca, Len, Michelle, guidance counselor Michelle, school counselor Michelle. Hello. Appreciate that. Samp and Janine. That's highly possible. I got that wrong. Leslie, Kareen, Walayat. Rebecca says happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Natalie, Heba, Joe, different Joe, Adam, Ellen, back 9 clients, Lauren, and Gordana. Nice. So
Feelings, thoughts, and musings about over-involved parenting.
Well, I have
Anyone?
more. So, so how can you support if it's not going to be overstepping, over editing the essay? I think helping your kids get organized is a very big deal. So I ran a boot camp yesterday. It was our fourth one this summer, our fourth session, and I spent a little bit of time with a few of our students for the second or third time, helping them. In the Common App, it actually there's a function that you can't really see too easily. So I helped show them this hidden secret function. After you load up your colleges in the Common application and you indicate how you're applying to each college, whether it's early decision, early action, regular decision, or whatever the other options are, that's when you'll see all of the deadlines, regular decision, early action, early decision, whatever. And then the hidden little function there, I can't really describe this too well because I'm not doing a screen share and you might be listening to this on our podcast or something. But in the upper right, there's a sort by, and it says college name. You can toggle that, and it'll say by deadline date. So that is really important. So if you know your deadlines, and I suggest you know this in September, okay, at the latest. And then you see how many supplemental essays you have to write. So a different task I have all of our kids do is go into the Common application, find the supplemental essays, which, by the way, another side note, but this is important. You might look at in the Common application and you look at your specific college that you've loaded up there, and it'll probably say, this college does not have a writing supplement. But if you go into that particular college's section and you click on questions, that's where you might find, in 400 words or less, describe what community you're from. That sounds a lot like a writing supplement to me. So you got to do one extra step of digging. You find each of those supplemental questions, you cut and paste them all onto one Google Doc in order of your priority and in order of deadline. You put the deadline there before each prompt that you've cut and pasted, and you put the word count there, and then you can see, number one, how many colleges have basically the same essay, like about diversity or community or whatever. So you might be able to use one essay for 5 colleges. Number two, you get a chance to map out, okay, school starting September 3rd. We're going to get really busy by October 3rd in school. You've got 16 essays to write. That means in about 4 to 5 weeks, you've got to have a minimum of 4 essays per week done. How can, do you agree, child, son or daughter? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, if that's not happening, if you fall off, how can I support you? How can I help you? Do you want me to remind you about this? Do you not? Some kids will be like, nah, stay away, I'm going to do it myself. And then you might say in response, okay, well, if you don't do this by yourself by this deadline, then what should happen? So they've got to take ownership of this. And that's a big deal too, because when you're too much of a helicopter or snowplow parent or hovercraft or whatever the latest terms are, what also happens is the child becomes less of an owner of the process, because they're like, okay, well, my mom's taking care of this. It's not my thing. Applying to college is your thing. Applying to college is about putting on the big boy pants, the big girl pants, and growing up. So yeah, a lot of kids and adults, frankly, need help getting organized. So I think that's an acceptable area, but that's a lot different than writing the essays for.
There's also a big issue with inaction amongst students in many regards. So there's almost like some false sense of safety, and if I just do nothing, it will sort of work out. This goes to not only during the application process of knowing your deadlines by which financial aid needs to be submitted, your application deadlines for admission, how you're applying, all of that. But then once you're enrolled in school, here's another issue that sometimes happens when students start in college. As they embark, let's say they become overwhelmed in a particular class and they're not quite sure how to approach the teacher or and again, this inaction occurs where, I'll just bury my head in the sand like an ostrich so that the world around me is not really happening in my head, but it is. And then what happens is deadlines for withdrawing from these classes in a way that doesn't have a blemish on your now college academic record, that inaction could have been easily prevented. So for all the kids who've just started, or in August, not only as to dropping classes or changing classes, but sometimes, I'll give another example. These are important things that I have seen affect our clients in past years. We had another student who, unfortunately, there is such an epidemic of depression and anxiety in our college-age kids and teens and unfortunately, while it's improved, there is still considerable shame around these and stigma around these issues. And then again, let's say a student, understandably, for the first time, away from home, away from anything that's secure, and gets into a bind, be it anxiety, depression, in a class, what have you, and then just shuts down with massive inaction and fails to avail themselves of resources that they're paying for at the institution that would help out in a situation like this. I had a student last year pursuing a nursing degree and unfortunately just fell so prey to depression, and the advice he got from his parents, and unfortunately they didn't communicate this to me until it was too late, but it was like, don't say anything about your depression. Don't tell your teachers, they'll hold it against. Don't tell the school. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. And what happened was the kid was kicked out of the program. And now it was final and too late. And the school wouldn't write him a recommendation for another program. All that had to happen was this kid needed to go in, and this is where the inaction, has to turn into action and self-advocacy when they get to school, so that they understand there is an accessibility department that deals with this, that you have, this condition and it interferes in this way. This is not atypical. Unfortunately, it's really typical. But the difference in this instance, where there was inaction or action, it could have spared, there would have been some solution that would have not, while this kid was suffering as he was, been obligated academically. Maybe he could have withdrawn and then come back the next semester after he got the care he needed. But none of that happened because of an inaction. So it's really important not to strip our kids of the ability to advocate for themselves, figure out things when things are not in a straight trajectory, because life is not a straight trajectory, as we all know at this point. We have to equip our kids to get in the driver's seat when there is that adversity and take a beat and figure things out. Seek counsel. This is where you can be involved as counsel with advice, not replacing the students' learning curve and ability to learn and figure things out for themselves, help themselves out.
Well, that was a little off topic.
It was, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't.
It was important. It was important. It's sort of like the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Yes.
What you just showed.
That's right.
So I think,
it is all related. Actually.
Just to sort of sum up everything here, letting your kids take ownership, it doesn't always work out, but you got to try that. And I think the important thing is for them to understand, even if you have to say it very bluntly to them, is that doing all this stuff, getting out in front, being proactive, taking responsibility, understanding your deadlines, mapping out a plan, that's in their best interests. It's not necessarily a mommy or a daddy thing. This is for you. This is for your growth. This is for you to be successful, not just in the college application process, but in your life, like Pro was alluding to. And this is you're the one who should be driving the bus here, not me, not mom, not dad, not whoever. And if they can buy into that, at least conceptually, to understand just from the narrow topic of today within the college application process, I think every kid would agree that they put more time in on their essays and their applications, they're going to produce better drafts and better results than if they rush everything together at the last minute because they had their head buried in the sand. Yeah. Or they think
avoidance.
Yeah, they think somehow ChatGPT is going to swoop in and create a great essay for them with a few keystrokes. It doesn't work that way, at least today.
Here's the other thing. Through the process of one's own legitimate production, toiling, working that process, when they're actually doing it and they come out on the other side, that is intrinsic, internal, not from the outside world, happiness and validation, for real, and a true antidote to depression and anxiety, generally speaking.
Well, you accomplish things. And
Yep.
so the more you accomplish, the better you feel, and the
And the more
more,
success,
Yeah.
and then the more
Right.
willing you are to take those risks and go forward from there.
yeah. And the opposite is if mommy and daddy takes care of that for you and you don't accomplish everything on your own, then all these horrible things will happen at some point
Yeah.
in your life. All right. So we're going to wrap up here. I see one more question, which is off topic, but that is okay. The topic,
It is.
is
Anything you guys want to know.
Yeah. And hello to Margarita, Irene, MD, Jomo, that's cool, Marcelo, and Trish's question is, a different college counselor mentioned online that a class of 2025 students already received their acceptance. Is this broadly for sports, or are schools already accepting class of 2025 students? Yeah, I mean, a bunch of the big state universities are rolling
Yeah.
admissions, so that's probably what that is, probably in the South,
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
The athletes don't actually get admitted officially until everyone else does,
Mhm.
but they might have a commitment.
Likely letter. Right?
Yeah, likely letter or a commitment or something, but it's probably not an athlete. All right, young lady, anything else?
Nope, but we welcome your questions, comments, topics of interest. Doesn't have to be when we actually host college coffee talk Mondays, but all week we will check back. If there are topics you're interested in hearing us discuss, please pop them in our chat, and
Yeah, so this
We'll
is
take
going
them on.
out. This is going out to our various social places like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and whatever. So we will be checking those. So what I recommend, if you like what we're talking about and you're not getting this information anywhere else, which I know is the case, then subscribe and you will never miss out in the future. And wherever you're watching this or listening to this, post your comment, and we're happy to address it. Have a great week. Oh wait, we're gonna be off next week. It's Labor Day,
ooh,
right? It's already, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have a great 2 weeks. We're gonna
All
be
right.
off relaxing,
Enjoy.
maybe on the golf course, feeling bad about our golf game. Okay. Have a great week. Now I have to do this. Hold on. Awkward. Have a great week. And have a great week.